The way we posted this and what we're intending on is we have a school committee meeting on the 6th. There's been an enormous amount of conversation and controversy around the connections topic. I feel, I'm pretty sure Nate feels the same way. I want to make sure I understand and give everybody a chance to sort of have a back and forth. That's not a format that works really good in a school committee meeting. If you've watched them in a real formal meeting, it's hard to have that back and forth. We're not looking to start a debate back and forth. I'm not going to try to convince you where I'm thinking, nor would I think you're going to try to really convince me as much as make sure I understand, I listen, and know where you're coming from. And Nate will stop me when I get that wrong, but that's that part. I will say, everybody's got a choice. There are going to be a lot of folks here. We're going to get something wrong, and if you take a snippet of something that's said tonight, and it makes it to Facebook or X or something else, it will likely get taken out of context, and tomorrow or the next day, the town will deal with the calls to the school that, you know, Paul on the school committee said he wants to do X, Y, Z, and I don't always speak properly. So it's your choice. We're not working on that, but I would hope you'll give some thought to how do we make sure we do as much as we can for the safety of everybody in this building tomorrow. If you came here on a Monday, there are sporting events that you could be at. There are a lot better things you could be doing. There's no doubt in my mind everybody in here today is here because they're convinced that something was either really right or really wrong, and we should do better by the kids. And I hope everybody will also consider that. We're going to open it up for dialogue. We're going to try to make sure that we don't get a back and forth. 6 of you feel this way and 4 of you feel that way. But that was what I wanted to go through. Let's see. It's not a school committee meeting. I've mentioned it, but let me say it one more time, right? You get 2 members of the school committee, that's 2 out of 5. We will form opinions and we will vote on notions and try to direct getting input from everybody, understanding, and then I will make choices on my own, and you can, you know, be unhappy or happy with it, but this is where we go with that. That means I can't speak for, and if I misspeak, I can't say, well, the committee is going to do this thing. That's the piece around deliberation. With open meeting law, I can talk to you about what I think I can learn from you, but Nate and I are 2 out of 5 votes, and we do not represent the committee. We're learning so that we can do a better job as committee members. One other, we can't, and I think, well, I won't, talk about individuals, and that gets a little tough, right? Because the principal is the principal, and if that came up, but we won't talk about individuals because they have very specific rights. They're on contract with the town, and we'll not just respect them, but we'll respect the laws around that space. So, like a committee meeting, we cover that. I don't know if I can get the wording right. Individual rights or comments about individuals aren't allowed because of their rights. I said listen. Did I say listen 6 times? I hope. That's really where we want to go. I also think there's enough folks here that there's feedback. I did talk a little bit about, shoot, what if they just want us to say, well, where do you stand on that, and it's over. We can do a little bit of that, but then we want to learn more. So there you go. Make sense? Anybody want to do something different? Kindergarten screening is still available.
Good luck.
Yeah. I am sorry about the microphones. If the way this works, we're recording. It's not live, but we're recording, and so for folks who can't make it, we're going to try to make it available for folks to see. That means we're stuck with the microphones. I think if it's really quiet and you really yell, you'll almost be heard on the tape, and Chris will say, yeah, probably not. So we've got other mics, and that's what we'll go with.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm wishing I did notes like Paul. Would have been better positioned to say even more. But essentially, Paul, you covered most of it. One of the things that I know there's been a lot of frustration is, you know, we're hearing a lot of people say, you know, we haven't heard anything from school committee. And it's frustrating. And to that extent, it's tough to say something on behalf of school committee. We can't. We have to have an open meeting. We have to have a consensus, a quorum to be able to say school committee feels this way. We were a little frustrated with that, so that's why Paul and I decided let's try to have some sort of discussion or a session for folks that we can hear you and we can talk. It's a challenge. There's a lot that goes into planning a meeting. A lot of times the schedules for the town meetings are figured out well in advance, and people book their travel and other personal things. So the reasoning for not the meeting, I don't particularly know, but I'm sure there were a lot of challenges that led to that. So that's why we've pulled this together tonight. And another reminder, this is just two of us on school committee speaking. This is not on behalf of school committee. We can't speak for school committee. So our real hope is to hear from everybody tonight, to really get more input. We've gotten a lot of email. We've gotten a lot of direct input. We're taking that all into consideration from every side. So we're really hoping there's a lot of participation tonight, because we're here to hear.
Start with questions. We haven't figured out how to work it. And if you're willing to use the mic, and that will help.
Hi, I just have a question. So I understand if you can't speak on behalf of the school committee as a whole, but also we understand that school committee positions are elected positions. So it would also be helpful to know how each individual feels for themselves when something like this happens, so that we can keep that in mind when election time comes.
So I'll start. We got two. We went really heavy on we're not the committee. We're two members of the committee. I will vote. I will offer you my opinions and thoughts. I will tell you my opinion in this topic has evolved over the last 2 weeks. It may evolve further. But I can start with that. What I don't want to do is start with that and then go back and forth, right? Some of the things I've heard, I think I get a better understanding of. But if it takes that, and I saw some hands, so I don't know that it will. I will tell you where I'm at. I will answer questions. We'll go back and forth, and that's unique, I think. But if you left the meeting and you don't know where I stand, the emails we read and work, and I will make statements around where I stand. Yeah. You got the mic. Go to town.
First of all, thanks for coming. This is amazing. My opinion on this whole connections thing, I'm not for it, but I can't stop it, which is fine. I don't want to stop it. But it doesn't have to be, the Sutton boys and girls soccer teams all have away games. There's 20, 30 schools that come. Tone this down. It goes to another school for the next year, 2, 5 years. That's just my opinion. With all these, I'm not on Facebook, I'm just saying, it's just, they can have it, It's just, it should be over inside. Calm it down. If they're so imposed, the kids still want to go and all of that, and the hierarchy want them to go, the kids get to choose whether they go or not. But it's time for an away game.
Because of what it's doing.
Because of the noise back and forth, because it's divisive, because it's broadcasting something that maybe isn't meant to be part of Sutton?
I want everyone to get along better. And this is just, the 20 years, this is up there with the Shaw Farm. So this is, so this is just, I told you, right, I am not for it, but I can't stop it. And I don't really want to stop it. I'd rather, but that's just my opinion. But it's time for an away game. We've held it here for 3, 5, 10 years. It's time for an away game. It's time to go to other schools. It would get it off the agenda, and just say, it's not really passing the buck, but if you guys want it, give your opinions, be my guest. Also, some of the emails, and all of a sudden, we get rid of X. That just shows the political of it. We know X is who it's owned by. It's not Facebook. They didn't get rid of Facebook, so we already know that the hierarchy is leaning left. So it is political. Try to deal with that. So because he's saying there's better safeguards and X and this and that, and who, you know, and has that, please.
There was a bias there.
There's a bias there. So, I mean, you could, you know, eliminate all your Facebook or whatever, all your social media postings, but you picked X, and there's a reason. You know it deep down inside. We all know it deep down inside. So, you know, and that's it. You know, that's anybody else.
Also, Warren, just to add to that, I agree with him. There is a bias there. And I don't want to know the principal's politics or the superintendent's politics any more than I want to know my doctor's politics or somebody else that I hired them or they're in a different position. He's not in a political position. He's here to run the school. Make sure that the students learn what they need to advance, to be successful academically. Yes, there are other aspects of being a principal, other facets of making sure that all of the students are properly taken care of. There are mental aspects, whatever, social aspects. But I don't need to know his political leanings, like I said, any more than I want to know my doctors, because that's not what they're there for.
It is tough to sort out, right? And it's, on the divisive subjects, easier to read, are you left or right leaning? And figuring out how to sort that piece. I think it's a shame that this subject is so you're either left or right on it. And the ability to separate that would be useful. A lot of the feedback is too much of politics. And how we work through the frameworks on that is going to be important.
Defuse it. It's time for the awakening.
I mean, I appreciate the comments, because that's all the stuff that we'll be thinking about. You know, to your point, there are certain things that it's not as easy to just get rid of something. We know the state we live in. We see some of the standards that are rolled down, and there's certain things that you have to meet, and how do you do that in a way that works? And what is excessive, what is appropriate?
That's what I said. I don't want you, you're not guys are not going to eliminate it, but it's just time for the awakening.
And the other thing is, how do you make this so that it's appropriate and it doesn't harm, you know, the effort behind it, you know? So,
Yes.
I appreciate it.
They're going to have to come down here, Nate.
So if you don't get on a mic, we'll...
She's going to have to come down here.
Set up,
Nate, there's a mic there. There's a mic right there. No.
Was the conference actually set up by the Sutton students? I thought they were the ones who organized and rallied it to the point in a way gave it someone else to manage it. Like, isn't it? Weren't they that impetus behind the event? And it's a question because I don't know the answer.
There is a piece to it that the Sutton Connections puts together the whole conference. So for sure, and I read the away game. Do you put the conference together, and is it in this on this campus? So there are lots of questions that go in there. I agree. Connections puts on the conference, and I believe it's a great part of the education for kids that regardless of the subject, you've got kids who are learning how to put together a conference that's got 600 people from different towns, from different states. But so I think finding a way to capture both of those is important. And if you don't use the mic, we won't.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Come on down, Matt.
They can use that mic too, the one on the stand over there.
I think it might be good if you guys give everybody a broad overview of what Connections is and how it started.
Sure, best I can do on this, right?
And it's just sort of generic so everybody knows what it actually is and what it isn't.
Yeah, okay, so. So this is one of those ones when I get it wrong, you all can help me fix it. So Connections comes out of the high school. It's internal to the school. It's a program that meets many of the requirements of the frameworks. And at the heart of it is, it's looking to find ways that the school provides an environment, a culture that anyone in the school system feels comfortable, feels safe, feels protected, feels able to speak their mind. There is for sure, and I'll get this wrong, LGBTQ+, there is for sure a great deal of conversation in that space. That's a group of folks that in that grade and that age need the protection more than others very often. And this provides a safe environment for whoever you are. The program, the actual conference talks about how do you provide those services to different schools? How do you provide an environment where there isn't bullying? And hopefully, because I saw some pieces on Facebook, we can talk about what does that really mean? Are we protecting the kids and how? But the conference brings that all together. It's managed and put together with adult supervision, but the kids get to bring that together. The connections piece is born in as an integral part of the system, and I would say, and it's something that we need, not for every student, but for some students.
I think it should be hopefully a quick question. Do you, or well, does Sutton Schools offer a career conference as well for the students that you know of? Because you said it was great, I'm only asking because you said it was great that the kids get these connections and they learn how to put together a conference. But is there any other conferences put on by the students or connections or Sutton Schools that is career-based?
I know there's an internship fair that's coming up soon, but it's a little bit more focused on the seniors. As they get closer to graduation, they can go off and do an internship at a job, which is great, and then everybody from the schools can come up and talk with those kids and see the career paths. It's pretty neat. It's coming up soon. I'm sorry, I don't have the date on it.
No, I
But
just,
for sure, the intern fair, and the other one I would talk about is some of the staff brings back alum to talk about what did they learn, what applies, where are they working. So there is a feedback mechanism there. What I don't know is how much of it is a student run and how much it is some of the staff that pull together.
okay.
But that for sure would speak to what are you learning, what worked, what didn't work to get you prepared for either school or
Right,
professional
and then I
career.
guess I have a follow-up question with something else you mentioned about the Connections Conference being about how other schools and other students can get together and to combat bullying, or, you know, you just mentioned the LGBTQIA+ community. Is that a problem here in Sutton Schools, and that's why we're having these conferences, because the students don't feel safe, or the students in Sutton Schools are being bullied? Because it was my understanding that Sutton has had anti-bullying for years. I mean, even my husband grew up in Sutton, and he said that it was a big thing back then. And I mean,
I think anyone who thinks
we're
it
not young.
doesn't exist in Sutton has missed.
Well-
I don't think it's pervasive or serious. You know, one event could be a serious issue, so again, I want to be careful, right? I would go back to the frameworks that the state puts forward, say for children of these grades, here are the things that you need to offer. So we put together a curriculum within the frameworks that have to address it.
Of the state, that are
Yes.
mandated, right?
Yes.
They're just a
Yes.
guideline, they're not laws.
Well, the frameworks you're meant to teach to, and you develop your curriculum to meet those. So, yeah, the mass law says here's what you're supposed to teach. Not how you teach
Other
it.
schools are putting it on, they're in the same state, so they're the same framework,
So,
right?
so the other schools are actually coming to the conference, and some of the discussions are about how do you do this? How do you put this in place? But that's connections versus the actual conference. You could do connections without the conference.
Okay, because we had connections
Yeah.
here before the conference was even a thing. Okay.
And we have had events, sorry, I just want to go back to, we have had events where there were things done that weren't appropriate, that needed to be addressed. That's where I say it's not pervasive, it's not everywhere. But
And I only ask because, you know, like you said, an away game, it's time, and this is dividing our town, it's dividing our state, it's dividing our country. So I just was wondering, you know, do we do other conferences that aren't as divisive and that are more suited to
Every single.
prepare our children for what they're here for? You know, they're here for preparing for their career path. And I think when they do become adults in their career paths, there are HR laws that will prevent any of this type of bullying, divisiveness. Like
and the more they're
the law
prepared-
covers that. So it's just, to me, I just wanted some further clarification on what the conference was.
And I would say the more they're prepared for and understand that when you go to work, there are HR laws, or if you go to school, you know, it's not every year, but you see something in the newspaper where 6 good kids were expelled because of something they did. The more you can help them know what gets you in that situation or not, the more they can make choices.
And do you both feel that the Connections Conference does that in preparing them for their future careers?
I personally think it does help, yeah.
But only the ones who sign up for it.
Well, yeah, you have to sign up, you're not forced to do Connections, but I've
So it's
heard a
not
lot of
actually
great.
necessary to be successful in life.
No, it's not, but there are a lot of kids that are very happy to have taken it, and it's a way to connect with people.
She needs
Yeah,
a microphone.
We're gonna, the questions that are getting recorded are fantastic, all right? Now we're trying to answer, and when I get it wrong, I'm in better shape for the 6th. But thank you for sort of questions that,
Hey guys, Chris Grafsdorf. First of all, like, there's a lot of bad stuff that's come of this. Like the threats and everything against Ted or the school, they're terrible, and I don't think anybody in here supports it one way, you know, I don't think that anybody would support that course of action, so that's number 1. 2, I think Ted McCarthy's a good guy. I have not agreed with Ted on many things, but when I've gone to him, he's always taken the time to listen to me and have an audience, which I always appreciated. At the end of it, we both said, well, I don't agree with you, but I understand your point of view. So as we look at what's going on here today, right, there's a part of like your own school committee bylaws that references that the kids will be taught to understand all points of view. There's the ethics code for the Massachusetts Teachers Ethics Code, which talks about not being able to politicize things or campaign or anything like that. So do your jobs, right? All you gotta do is do that. So with regard to the Connections Conference, putting it in a away game, they're still gonna have the club here, and the material's gonna be here, and that's fine, you know, but, you know, as you talk about having a drag queen, I would probably chalk that up to good initiative, really bad judgment. You know, I understand where they're trying to go, but it's not the place. So if we're gonna represent a left-leaning, not even a left-leaning, like a left fell on its side agenda in the schools, like, it's gone on a long time. So I've talked to you guys about it back when my kids were in school, and you know, Graham Sorf gets up, runs his mouth, roll your eyes, lather, rinse, repeat. But nothing's changed. And if you remember then, my one ask of you guys, the only thing was, represent all the points of view. Like, the kids should have no idea what a person's political leanings are. If they do, that teacher has failed and they probably violated their ethics code. If you're gonna discuss a controversial topic, do it in the appropriate class, whether it's civics or critical thinking or something, not in Spanish class, you know? And if you're gonna discuss a sensitive topic, bring in somebody to present the other side. You know, if you guys at the school committee said like, hey, at the high school, they're gonna be talking about gun laws and how we need to get more gun laws. I can guarantee, and we need somebody to present the other side. I guarantee you would get a well-educated, well-articulated response every time. So if you guys could simply go to the school and say, hey, Ted, do your job. You're not there to teach the kids one side of anything. Teach the kids both sides of everything. Don't teach them what to think. Don't teach them how to think. I mean, what to think. Teach them how to think. I know I'd get that right sooner or later. But they're not doing that. They're getting the steady push from the left. And the kids that try and voice an opposing concern, they're silenced. They're shuttered. They're pushed away. They're told they're wrong. They're told, yeah, they're bullied. They're told that, hey, you have, and you know, if you want to talk about another one that have a good point counterpoint on, talk about DEI, talk about inherent bias, talk about white privilege. I'll tell you, I think it's a bunch of hooey, and I can give you some reasons why. And if you want to tell me why it's there, I'm happy to listen, right? I'm happy to walk away and say, I understand their point of view better. But I'm not happy when the only side they present is the left-leaning side, and they push it hard. So guys, look, uphold the code ethics.
One, I think the drag queen, because I've really been trying to figure this out. I think of drag performance, and it never enters my mind that the drag performance is in some way or shape anything more than a performance. The stuff I read on Wikipedia, wherever I look at it. So what I would say is, I have a very different opinion.
Are you kidding me?
So I have a different opinion.
All right, hold on. We did talk about, this is a conversation, hearing both sides.
We did talk about this, we're gonna hear both sides.
Bailey,
We're gonna hear mine.
Bailey.
No.
Bailey, please.
The drag queen, his
Bailey,
name was
we need
David
something
Higginbottom,
more.
he was paid $2,270. It was taxpayer money, that's
Bailey.
$500 an hour, okay? He was in a white thong and a pink miniskirt, he was in my library. He hopped up on my cafeteria tables. I'm alumni here. I don't know who else went to Sutton High School or Sutton Schools. I'm embarrassed by what happened here, guys. I'm embarrassed. It's gross.
Doing this,
And
but
no.
Bailey,
They're applauding. I think they want to hear what I have to say. I think they want to hear what I have to say.
And we
So I'm gonna
will, Bailey, we will, but Paul was talking, and then you're more than
say-
welcome.
No, but sir, this is more than just a performance. You need to understand this is an attack on something that a lot of people.
Bailey, I appreciate that, but can you just allow him to finish talking? We're trying to have a conversation. You're more
Yeah, absolutely. No, I apologize. This was unprofessional. I should allow him
As
to
it
finish.
devolves, we don't get anything out of it, we don't learn. You say you want to hear my, no, sorry, but give me just a moment. You say you want to give me a chance and you just want to hear where I'm coming from. I'll ask the question. If folks don't want to do that, we can go back
Go ahead.
to Facebook.
No, let's hear it, sir. Right now.
But
Bailey,
How do you feel about
Bailey,
no?
please.
The first question you were asked tonight is how you guys felt. You guys are in elected positions. You were asked how you felt, and you went around the question just like everybody else in politics likes to do. You're just like any other politician out there. See, they're clapping. They want to hear more of me. They want to hear less of you. All I want to hear from you right now is how you actually feel about the fact that a drag queen was hired with taxpayer dollars to perform in front of school children in our town's high school. Sir, please answer that question.
Stop talking and let it.
Bailey, please let him answer.
I'll do it once.
Go ahead, please.
I'll do it once, and then I'd like you to let everybody have a chance.
Absolutely. Please answer that question.
So I don't think the facts are correct with what you've said,
There you are.
and we're not
You're
going
absolutely
to
correct.
back here. We'll keep digging into it, but I don't think the facts are correct, and I don't think holding a mic. And by the way, this is sort of bullying when you do this in private.
Look at that! That's gaslighting right there. I'll give you a psychological term. That's gaslighting right there, sir.
And I'd like it to be possible for, if there's only one or two who agree with me, to not feel threatened or feel concerned. I'm okay.
Nobody has any reason to be threatened. I'm a U.S. military veteran. I used to do counter-narcotics. I found over $300 million worth of cocaine on behalf of this country. I used to point automatic weapons at people for a living with night vision goggles, never shot anybody. You have no reason to feel threatened at all, okay? I know how to control my anger. These people don't know how to answer a direct question. They're still trying to avoid the question that I asked them, and they're blaming it on me. You guys telling me to quiet down. I have every right to speak. I serve this country. Don't tell me to quiet down. Please. Please, give me the... He's not answering the question. He's not answering the question.
Bailey,
So answer the question.
Would you
Then answer it. Answer it.
Bailey, would you please put the mic down for a moment? Thank you. Please let him answer.
I'd like to understand the difference of like, I see it as a performance and you don't. You see it as a threat. I don't think that that's wrong so much as it's a difference of opinion around what it was. And it makes this get really tense. It makes it turn into the same thing that we're seeing on Facebook. Nobody's listening. I'm open to hear where I missed on that, where I should look and learn differently. I haven't seen that yet. I haven't heard that yet. I have seen and heard people who describe it very differently. This was an opportunity to go back and forth. I'm not going to try to convince you one way or the other, but I will share with you, and I think I answered the question around what I think about whether there should have been a drag or not there.
Do you think,
it's a yes or no?
do you think there should have been?
Appropriate, yes or no? Yes or no answer? It's not
Yes,
appropriate.
I think a drag performance, as I understand it, is
That's an
okay.
elected position. So Paul, burlesque is an art form, it's a performance. If you had a stripper in here doing burlesque, would that be okay?
No,
Not
Because
at
it's the
school.
same
It's the
flipping
same, not
thing.
at school on the tables.
But what the presentation was at.
You need a
was
microphone.
From someone whose child was there. Okay, she's 15 years old, she chose to go because it would be fun. You can go to environmentalism, you can go to any issue that you really want to go to. There's programs on every topic. And yes, do they go left or they might lean left? Yes, but that's where this generation is a little bit leaning right now. Okay, whether you want to, no, whether you want to go to colleges or whatever. Whatever, okay, it could be. All I'm gonna say from a 15-year-old's perspective, what she got out of it is he was, find your tribe. Okay, that's what he did. That was his big message, was go find your tribe. Find people that support you, find people that love you exactly who you are, and that's her takeaway. That is someone that was actually there. That was her takeaway. This isn't a drama thing, this isn't whatever. She went there, it was fun, it was upbeat, it wasn't as depressing as environmentalism or whatever it was. It was just go and a positive message. And what we're talking about is Connections Conference. What is Connections about? It's building connections. It's, you're a completely different person than I am. You choose a different lifestyle than I choose. And let's find a way to have a conversation. Let's find a way to connect. So we can have a respectful conversation. So we can bridge the gap a little bit, okay? Because right now we're right and left, and that's not getting us anywhere, okay? And I guess that's my frustration is I had a daughter that was there, and I'm not on Facebook. I'm kind of ignorant on everything that's going on. And I heard it blew up, and I'm like, oh, what happened? Oh, what was your takeaway? What did he talk about? And this is what it was. Oh, he talked about finding your tribe, finding people that love you. You know,
not dancing on the table. Not dancing on the table.
It could have been done in a different manner.
Yes.
Possibly it could have been done in a different manner,
Agreed.
but that's not like, this is.
You can find your tribe without dancing on the table.
But this is what we can talk about is like the evolution of, okay, they stepped over a line. So like we all step over lines occasionally. We make a mistake. We have to fix the mistake, but we don't blow up the school. Pardon my language, okay? And I'm so frustrated. Everyone's like yelling and screaming. They're trying to have a dialogue here.
How many people would have been okay with the rest of the program if the drag was there? So that's...
Yeah, I would have been okay with that.
Right.
That went too far.
So there have been a lot of folks who provided feedback and said that was just a step
I
too
think
far.
whoever put it on knew
People
that
know
was
enough
risky.
about it. People don't know enough about it.
Hold on, we need Mike. Sorry, Audra. Okay.
Go ahead.
Just good evening, everybody. I was just going to say, I'm a little disappointed because I don't know if the superintendent's here tonight or principal. I didn't see him. I don't know if any of the faculty that were there during that event were there. But if I was involved with something like that, I would be here sitting there. Now, maybe I wouldn't speak, but I would be here. Because to me, that's what you need to do. You have to own something. Whether you're left, right, or in the middle. If you make a mistake or not a mistake, if someone's questioning, you have to own it. Half of the world is just you need to show up.
Just to clarify, they asked. I had several people who are administrators and staff who asked, can I come?
So I get
be here?
Okay,
and I asked not to because I wanted a feedback, and I was concerned it would get back and forth, and we'd really spiral.
Well, I guess so. As a long-term person living in town, taxpayer, sitting on another committee, a couple weeks ago, I sent a letter to the chair of the school committee, Senator Fatman, and the head of the select board, saying I wanted a public meeting with everybody, and I think this meeting needs to happen on school grounds or somewhere, publicized, live, and everyone involved there. And the entire thing from A to Z needs to happen. What the Connections Conference is about, who funds it, where the money came from, everything. Factual, not opinion, factual, A to Z, because I'm ignorant. I don't know the whole thing. You said, do I support the Connections? Well, I don't know enough about it to say if I support it or not. I don't support it directly, I can tell you that, but maybe the other 6 or 7 things I do support. But I can't say if I do because no one told me. So I'm a little embarrassed with this town that people are not here saying, hey, here's the deal. This happened 3 weeks ago. Here it is, A to Z. Lay the whole thing out. I'd also like to request any faculty that were there to be here. I'd like a whiteboard or a movie projector to show the pictures. Now, I don't want to see them again, and I would specifically request anyone under the 18 not be allowed to be at the event, but I think people need to see the entire thing from start to finish to understand and be educated. Because I only know bits and pieces of it. And I can't make a decision what's right or wrong. I can give you some opinions, but if I give you my opinion on everything, we'll never win. So I don't know if I made any sense tonight, but I am specifically and publicly asking for a public meeting with everyone involved. Thank you.
It's a great request. It's a great request, and figuring out how to make that work makes a ton of sense. this is what we could do tonight. And I think we get something from this. It's not the end of it for sure.
But that's a great example for the kids to do that, right? You said we can have the conference, they learn how to put things together, let them put the meeting together.
I'm a little nervous about putting the kids in front of this
I'm not
meeting.
saying to have them here, but let them do the logistics of it, understand how the politics work, what's coming out of it, and let them kind of build that from the ground up, and to be able to put it all together for the town.
I mean, as Paul said, like, we were doing this because this was the most we could do as 2 members. And we thought it was important to pull together and hear from everybody. We weren't looking to have a night where we're trying to prove anybody wrong. We're really trying to take input. You know, I'm still making my mind up on some stuff. Sure, you start out in one place, but I'm here because I want to listen. I want to hear things. My mind can be changed. You're not going to find me somewhere and say, nope, this is it, and that's the only way I think. I get enough information, that's okay. I'll shift. I'm fine with that.
What is your position right now?
Right.
You told us.
My opinion, honestly, I didn't care that much about it. My daughter would have been fine with it. I see dance bloomers. I've seen worse things on clowns and figure skaters. So me personally, I'm not offended by that. But you know what? Every parent in here has a view. And you have something that you say, well, that's appropriate, inappropriate for my kid. And what we're trying to do is learn from this. For my daughter, that's okay. She's likely to see stuff like that 2 years from now when she's out of the house and away. And I'm okay, come home, talk to me. Now, I don't think it's appropriate in a regular school setting. No, I don't.
Do you think that would be a poor judgment call by the principal? You guys are stating right now that this is so divisive, you can't have all these people in here, the students can't see all this. So don't you think it's a bad judgment call by the administration allowing this to happen? When you guys are stating right now that you can't do all these different things because it's so divisive, but he went ahead and did that anyways?
Well, there's things,
that's a poor judgment.
there's things that we can't do because, again, we have to meet as a committee. I can speak as an individual, and I've also, my understanding too was they didn't expect a performance. It was supposed to be a panel discussion. Now I understand if the name of the title of the session, yeah, you would likely expect there would be a drag queen there. Again, it's different for every parent. For me, I'm okay. I trust my daughter. I can talk with her after, and I can discuss that. And in some ways for me, like, she wasn't able to make it. She wanted to be there. She had another school event she was at. That's my view, but again, as I hear more information, I can shift on that. That's okay. Audra, sorry.
Amy, so, it happened. I feel like at this point, what's done is done. My question is, going forward, if we're viewing this as a performance, and we're not gonna draw a line in the sand of where we stand, there's now, you know, aerobics classes with a strip club pole in the room for women to take those classes. Are we gonna allow that too, because that can be considered a performance? My concern is where are we drawing the line? Because I feel like kids are in school to learn, right? If I could separate LGBTQ from state, I would in a heartbeat. I know I can't. So the fact that it was optional is what's saving this. But even though it was optional, how far are we gonna take it? Are we gonna have a class for kids on how to pleasure themselves? I'm not trying to be rude, I'm just trying to be serious. I don't know how much further, I would have never thought this was gonna come to this.
Never gonna be enough.
Or even if it came to this and that was part of the conference, if someone got up on a table and started doing something, why someone said, like, okay, you're gonna need to get down now. Because if a student, just any student, not even dressed in drag or whatever, was to get up on a table and start dancing, I would think they would be told to get down.
Go on.
The other thing I want to bring up is, you know, we don't want any bullying and things like that. Well, I will tell you from a Christian perspective that if you wear a t-shirt that has a cross on it, or you believe in Jesus, or you have a cross on your neck, that those kids get bullied too. So it can't just be one-sided bullying.
So, a couple of things.
Quick question.
Microphone.
How was advertised this meeting? Because I didn't see anything about it.
So your question was how this meeting was advertised.
Right. In other
So
words, I thought there would be a whole, I thought every seat would be full here. But I'm thinking
It's something we pulled together. Again, if this was a school committee meeting, there's a lot more you can do with it. This is I'm not on Facebook, I don't do Twitter or whatever they call it. I don't do those things. And I think that's how a lot of people are getting information. It's not for me. We did what we could by trying to get it out there in a quick fashion. We pulled this together late last week because we've been wanting to have a meeting for a couple weeks now.
And there are far more people here tonight than that, maybe football, but for almost any school committee meeting I can remember. And I would go back again, it's tense. Nobody's here because they don't care, because they don't want to see the Bruins play, or because they don't care about the kids.
But there's
right?
people that didn't know about it.
Yeah, and I
that's always going to be the case. But the thing is, I think maybe if you waited a little longer and put it, publicly advertised.
For me, I didn't want to wait any longer. If I could have done it, I would have done it Thursday before vacation week. And then maybe another one, again, if there's still a lot of energy. There's a great suggestion around what should the next format or venue look like and who should be involved. I think that should be considered, but I think you do the best you can. And I see it, but I want to go back. I'm going to lose some of the comments. Something maybe everybody can agree on. I agree on. I think anybody getting on the table, regardless of what they're wearing, was a cross. And finding a way that we use the resources from the town, the building, in a fair and appropriate and respectful manner, regardless of what the performance was, if it was a performance or not. For me, at least, will become a question of how when we're doing something like this, or something not like this, it's an away game for this, but something else, how do we make sure we're protecting our assets? So for sure there are things that you can learn from it.
Just a couple of questions. I guess the school committee did not see this agenda beforehand. Is that true?
That's right. We've seen or had reports out on the events for several years, so it's not really in the purview of the school committee around what you're doing curriculum-wise, but...
Yeah, and I think just looking at the agenda outside of the drag show, there was a couple sessions, one about Puerto Rican citizens being second-class citizens, another one about the patriarchy and things like that. And I think someone made a great point about, find your tribe. And I would say that we don't necessarily need more tribalism. We actually need more unity. And I don't understand how those sessions kind of unite us as a town, unite us as a school. We're not LGBTQ+, we're not Puerto Rican, we're Americans, we're citizens of Sutton, right? We have parents in the school, and I just think there's just a shocking lack of oversight here. We, as a parent, I leave my kids with teachers in the school, and it's kind of weird that this happened.
I think we're doing it a disservice, frankly, the connections, when somebody asked me to describe it. Because I think what you're describing that you want is very much the spirit of what Connections is trying to do. But again, I can't answer that well enough. So what I take away from this is, how do we answer that well enough? How do we communicate? Nobody's watching on television right now, so nobody's screaming you said it wrong, Paul, but it is taped as much as we can, and it's something that's got to get answered.
And I think to that, all of this, I think, actually shows why Connections is needed. Now, that being said, there's been a lot of talk of it leaning one direction or the other, but I would love Connections where it covers both sides. Because really what it should do is bring people together. It's about connecting.
I just looked at my wife up here.
Did you want to ask a question? Come on down.
Hi everybody, my name is Sean Nelson. I'm actually part of the gay community. And I serve this country as a Marine Corps vet. I looked up your connection. All this nothing is divisive, woke nonsense. That's not teaching your kids, but the whining little brats that you see in these colleges right now. Microaggression, impact biases. This is this basically communism and racism disguised as some kind of bring us together. All inclusive. It's only inclusive if I agree with you, basically. Yeah. So, every time you read it, go online and read it. And it was just a really short thing. You have a trans kid from Texas who's been awarded. There's no such thing as a trans kid. This kid has been brainwashed by the system and her parents who try to prop her up. I was gay in high school back in the time. I'm 45 years old, back before it was cool to be gay. I was kicked out of the Marines based on don't ask, don't tell. So I know the prejudices. And this is not it. You're not bringing nobody together. You're brainwashing these kids to feel like they're victims. Your kids who are mostly, I'm going to assume, white, are going to assume that I should feel guilty about what somebody who looked like me 200 plus years ago. Then you're going to teach someone who looks like me I'm a victim. I went through that very quickly. It was just nonsense. Biases. We all have biases. It's how you act on them. I worked in retail and looked at somebody who was white until they were doing something suspicious, and I looked at them. I didn't have any biases because, oh, they're white supremacy, that's nonsense. I grew up in a time where you were taught to be independent. You were taught to have critical thinking. These kids are not taught to be critical. They're taught to go be a follower. I was taught to be a leader, stand up. Do you see something wrong? Raise your hand and call it out. All they're being taught is to shut up, be quiet, and follow along with whoever says what. It makes no sense. You should not have a drag queen. Drag queens are only for adult context. And I've been to many drag queens. And a lot of these drag queens who are performing for the kids, they seem to be all sex offenders who are not even supposed to be around kids. So she should have done a background check on that one who showed up. It's inappropriate. Simple as that. And all I hear from you two are making excuses. You can just do your research and open an account real quickly, and you will see the nonsense that's going on in this country. You don't need that wokeness. You need to teach these kids skills when they become adults. When I was in school, that's in the 90s. I was taught to do a resume, how to do an interview, do computers, interact in the world. My teacher said, I'm getting you ready for the adult world, not to be more children. So you need to stop with the tired excuses. Because the way you both are talking, you're making excuses.
There is a chance we have a different opinion. I hope that I can convince you it's not trying to make excuses.
Right now, look at it. Microaggression. Look at me sensitive when someone talks to you. That's all it is.
I can't hear you, Earl. I'm happy to go to a website and take a look at it. I have looked at several websites. You're quoting a website that I guess I'm just not familiar with.
Connections website?
Oh, the Connections. I'm sorry, yes, I've been to the Connections website. I thought there was a website that was actually explaining some of these things. Yeah, no, I've been to that one. I'm pretty comfortable with what that was.
We know.
Have you read anything on it?
Yes.
Have you read the resources that are listed there?
Sorry.
Under the resources, have you gone?
Some of them I haven't gone 2 or 3 layers down.
Making up white?
So,
No racism there.
so there's a really good question around how much of that, and it's come up several times, how much of that is saying this is what you should think, this is how you should feel?
All of it.
And how much of it is, and how much of it is saying this is an opinion and you need to be able to understand several different opinions?
None of it.
None of it.
Zero.
That's your job.
All right, excuse me, just hold on. We're here to listen to everyone.
They need microphones. They need to come down.
Yeah. Hey, if you want to speak, please come up to use the microphone, okay, so we can capture everyone.
Hi.
Please.
I'm Jocelyn Young. I did enter a little late, so I apologize. Just let me know if you covered this already. But just since I've been here, I don't know if it's been covered. Are we talking about the Connections Conference, which is not a school event? Or are we talking about infiltration, like into the curriculum? Because I was confused as to the topic.
I think it's a little both.
A little both?
I think there's a lot of all of that topic
Connections
and concern
Conference
about
is
having
not
it within the school.
Connection Conference is a carryover from a 6-week program they do during school called Connections.
I'm familiar with it.
Yes.
I also have
It's at the school.
Yes.
It's at the school, just like green beans at the school?
Yeah.
They're not drag queens in other words.
Right.
So, you know.
No, I'm just saying, but like if that was inappropriate, then I wouldn't be welcome back, correct?
Right.
So is the I wasn't at the I know the performance was outside the scope of what was approved by the club and administration. Is that something that, is that performer welcome back because they went outside of the scope, or is that a question for administration? Is it something where if people have strong views in our town about Connections Conference on both sides, is that something that perhaps if there's kids and families that want to be involved? It's grown quite large. I know all the New England states and the Department of Education provides a lot of funding, as well as other state organizations. Maybe a different site would make it more palatable for those that don't want that on school property. Is that discussed?
Some of the questions I was asking around, is it Connections, is it the conference, is it the drag, which pieces, is it all of them, is because that's a conversation that's taking place, right? And it crosses into, we're not the committee has not made a statement that we won't bring that person back or that we will, right? We haven't gotten feedback from, so I don't want to make a statement and have somebody say, well, wait a minute, it wasn't answered. But the question around, how much value does it add? Bear with me, don't yell for just a second. If I believe what I believe about the drag, but it doesn't work because it's too divisive, that I don't get as much benefit as I think I could, then how do I change Connections and the program to keep the good part? And so some of the questions and some of the anger, I'm trying to understand that piece. The fact that I do or don't understand drag differently is interesting, but not as important as how do you bring the whole committee, the whole community together, not just the school, but the whole community, and what works and what causes more division is maybe causes benefit.
No, and I might have misunderstood things. So what about the Connections Conference falls under the purview of the school committee?
Policy is set, but policy doesn't go specific to.
It doesn't apply.
You get rid of it,
So
or who gets rid of it?
that's what I guess that's.
Who's it? Who keeps it? Who gets it?
So I don't have a good answer yet, but I keep thinking about this, right? Part of the reason why the state sets up the school and school committee relationship the way they do is so that we're not having a discussion about the baseball coach or the English teacher, right? That the state very much sets what's supposed to happen and keeps it from becoming political. That guy doesn't play my kid, and he doesn't know what they're doing. The same thing applies here, I believe, right? Could we stop it? I suppose in theory, because we have control of the budget, you could very much impact the budget and change that. I would much rather.
So we did pay for it.
I would. Yeah, so we're going to get better answers about that rather than just ours. But for me, at least, as a practical matter, it was in the building, and no matter how much you say you didn't pay for it, it's using the facilities and people. There's somebody posted questions about how much photocopier did they use. I don't know. I think it's very hard to separate. I also think that the amount of money we're talking about is much smaller than what's being published.
Did the teachers go without pay for that day since it was not a school day?
The teachers who attended would have been there as professional development, and contractually they're paid for professional development days, and this meets the requirements for professional development. So the teachers weren't paid more. The Connections program would be paid a stipend contractually. I'm doing this as quick as I can, but right, the question around how did you guys pay for this or who paid for it, there's enough question on that it's worth understanding. I don't think anybody's going to look at it.
My point is we taxpayers did fund some of this, whether it was a school event or not, in fringe, salaries, etc.
When the dance club studio comes and uses the auditorium, we charge something for it. Does it capture all of the costs? Probably. You spend an awful lot of time trying to sort that out.
I know one of the other parents, because I was a little unclear about funding, and I know a lot of the kids planned a lot of it, but did the teachers plan it as well? Are they part of it? Like, I heard grants were written. Sorry. That's okay.
Did you still have more questions? You go.
Oh.
I can back up anytime.
I just wasn't sure if the grant writing or the teachers were involved as well. It's just like a question. Like, I know the kids planned it according to one of the parents, but teachers and the grant writing happen from like Sutton teachers as well? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sutton teachers would be part of writing grants. Sometimes it's administration working grants. So if there's grant money spent,
It comes from in-house, right?
there's
We write
one.
them, like the, not we, like the teachers.
Not
write
all of
the
them.
grant.
I can actually answer that question, only because I was part of an organization that provided grants to the Connections Conference a few years ago, not the one I'm currently with. And so I can probably answer that from an in-house and legal point of view, because staff probably can't. Is it depends. So for instance, a few years ago when it was just getting started, the first couple of years, they used an education foundation to start up some of the costs or pay for speakers, similar to the grant they got this year. So in that instance, they just contacted us, and it's like a one-page form that they fill out. And they do teach the kids how to do grant writing or how to research funding opportunities and things like that, which is a skill in a lot of different internships when you're doing nonprofit work. I don't know about the current year or the year prior, but I can tell you previous years that was like not in-house grant writers, but they would reach out to their partners.
Thank you.
So this is not why I'm at a mic, but that's really help out. So I guess one of my last questions for my school committee members is I would love at that, because I know May 6th is probably going to be a melee, but I would continue to advocate for clarity of information as far as roles of school committee, because I do think, regardless on what side I stand, which I don't generally talk about a whole lot publicly, is, because it doesn't super matter, is like there are a lot of laws and instructions and statutes and regulations around school committee, around even administration, around how we treat certain population that comes from state and federal guidelines. So there's not a lot, regardless of opinions or facts, however we want to say it. Like, is there a way for us to get that information out to the Sutton residents so they can understand why it might sound like excuses, but it's some of it, there's legal reasons.
Legally required to have a
No, you don't have to legally have a drag queen. Yeah. So that probably is like the furthest you can go, but there are legal things around what the school committee members can do if you even wanted to. There's certain things that DESE has for protected populations, but that doesn't mean you have to have a conference in your thing, but there's, I think more hands are tied or mouths covered, And so if people understood some of those, I work in them every day and I have a hard time following them all because they change all the time too. So like, I would just continue to encourage the school committee and administration to put out that information, and I don't know the easiest way to do that, because I think some people get mad, invalidly so, because there's a barrier that we're unaware of.
And I'm in both spaces. This isn't the only question where it comes up. What's the authority of the committee? And I think we need to know that, and I appreciate the question, and it's certainly one we got to go back. I also think that when you get to a space where the school committee is trying to figure out what's the authority and what controls should they have on the school, we've gone to a different space, right? That you're probably not putting together the right school district for your kids. It just sort of as a barometer. I also think that if you don't like it, then you get to vote, and in the school committee, even if I turn around and say, well, I couldn't legally change that, it's appropriate for you to know where I stand on that space, because you do send a message, and I don't think it needs to be a referendum on. There's a lot of other things you could not vote for me for. I don't know if this needs to be a referendum, but for sure, every year there's one or two members of the committee that are up for election, and you can make a statement with that.
Who is this year?
I am, so there you go. And Ben Gibbons are both of our, the chair, both of our terms are up this year.
So I just have a couple of comments and maybe some food for thought for all of you. I'm interested, not a lot of people have identified themselves as parents of current students or parents of students who actually attended. I also think it's very interesting that this conversation has not really focused on the reality that this was an out of school time optional event. I heard someone say, that's your job. That's your job. The school offers all sorts of things. We have green bean kits. We have.
It was not clear what would be there. I'm sorry. I signed the slip. My daughter was there, and it was not.
I'm so sorry you did not read the Connections website because the entire agenda is on
They
their
just
website.
said that the tables wasn't.
Yes,
I'm not going to get into that back.
The phone can get passed after.
Thank you.
Can we allow
Thank you.
how much to talk?
Dig down to get to the.
That's your role as a parent, right, to do your due diligence. So I'm sorry that you're disappointed. You have an absolute right to be disappointed, but it is the due diligence of the parent.
You just said it wasn't part of the performance. So they did not sign consent for a performance.
So the how to be, don't be a drag, be a queen was a listed, described workshop.
Performance.
That's right. So if that's your gripe,
That's the problem. A man wearing underwear in a
But-
face skirt, dancing on a table for children. That's the problem. You seem to have missed that.
it's not a problem for me, first of all, because as I said, it was an out of school.
Taxpayer funded.
So again, I'll say that it was an out of school time event, that students, that you allowed your children to attend, or not.
It didn't
But
say drag.
my point here, and what I'm urging the school committee to consider, and I will urge all of you to go home and consider, is that I'm hearing a lot of, it's too divisive, so let's get rid of it. I'm hearing,
This isn't Rosa
No,
Parks.
transfer it. Put it in another school for a transfer.
let's get rid of it. It's too divisive, so transfer it over. Is bullying really a problem?
That's what they said.
And I've watched repeatedly, that gentleman from that corner, I don't think he's still seated there, came up and started yelling over the committee members that opened the
Child
floor.
safeguarding is serious. People get upset when it's their babies.
Child safeguarding is serious, and
Yes.
threats against the school have come post this event. That's not child safeguarding.
Someone
That's
has
not what we're
at
talking
my
about.
place of employment. So it doesn't go, it's not all one-sided like you guys want to say.
I'm not saying this is a one-sided event. I'm saying that.
Is this bullying? Is this bullying when we have a disagreement?
No.
Nobody's allowing each other to talk.
No, but
You have your hand on your hip telling us you signed up for it, it's your job as a parent. They didn't say there'd be a performance.
I'm sorry, my body language isn't the way.
They didn't say there'd be a drag performance in the permission slip, right? Is that transparent for parents?
I mean, I looked at that website for the Connections Conference, and all of the workshops were transparent to me. Yes, they were. I went to the website, I looked at the agenda. Yes, I would say that is my personal opinion. But I'm urging you to look at yourselves and consider what you said, because as a parent of a child that is neurodivergent, tell me about my family.
So let's.
Non-white, this is not a safe space for that kid. Oh, I'm sorry, I used the word, I used the safe space word. I know.
People disagree with you, so it's not a safe space?
No,
It's almost like what you're saying to them.
No, it's not at all.
Exactly the same thing.
It is. We
You
don't
know,
have the same opinion as you.
We started trying to find a way.
You're saying that there's not a need for protection of LGBTQIA students or for students of color?
A drag queen is not for gay kids either.
Folks, excuse me. Can we just allow the person with the mic to speak, and then whoever wants to can come up next? We want it, well, the problem is everybody's getting interrupted. We do want to hear from both, but please, allow whoever's at the mic to speak, and then we'll go next. We do want to hear from both.
I'm urging you to think about this somebody said it, in a factual context. What this conference was, how related to the actual academics of the school day this was, and whether or not you allowed your children to attend. That's a different conversation than honing in on one drag queen at one workshop. It is. Then maybe the drag queen, I'm not saying that, maybe the drag queen was the wrong choice, but are you attacking Con? Are you attacking a drag queen? Are you attacking the fact that you just didn't read the agenda before you signed the paper?
It's an opinion, like yours.
By the way, they said that the drag queen
Who would like to speak into the mic?
Sorry.
Okay, so I'll do my best here, but one judgment came up earlier, I think that was your word. There's nothing that's happened here, not one thing, from the second this happened that should have been unexpected by anybody. The whole cycle goes on week after week after week all over the country. Never thought it would come here. Yes, I know what ConCon is. My daughter went last year. I knew it was going to be filled with a little bit of hooey. I let her go because it was a social event. I signed the slip. I didn't go back and look at the conferences. If that makes me a bad parent, because I didn't go down that far and read all those things.
Yes.
You know, so judgment. You see, okay, this is what's going on around the country. We don't want this kind of heat. We're not going to have it. We don't need to fight the front line of the culture war inside.
Jack.
And the other, we talk about, so this has gone on around the country over and over and over again, never going to be a drag queen and something, don't have to worry about it, but then, okay, and now here we are, and everything that's been expected, except lack of accountability from the school. At no point yet have we heard from anybody, okay, we went too far. Okay, we should have thought about that a little bit more. We get the line from you guys. We do get the line. The line is, this would have never taken place during school. I've heard it from you guys. I've heard it from McCarthy. But this is extracurricular, so therefore it was okay, even though it took place at a school with students and teachers. And I fully support. And also, yep, she had my permission. She totally did. I had no idea that thing was there. Again, I now know, my fault, okay? She went, she had a great time. It was hilarious for her. She brought home the flyer, she went to the Instagram page, and the world of drag is out there. But I guess because she can see other things on her phone, that's totally okay. So the conference also, again, now we have this other thing going on in the world, this, people do deal with whatever the trans thing is. It's a real thing, it's really hard. I have no doubt about it. I'm not saying that. But going on, it's crumbling in Europe. All these clinics are being shut down. It's not there. And yet we had a 12-year-old boy at the conference who spoke to quote-unquote thunderous applause from the TNG, where parents and everybody are like there supporting, being nice for this thing that we don't know where this kid's going to be in 10 years, other than a lifelong medical patient. We don't know that. And so are we ever going to look back and think, did we open up these doors for these girls to go down these roads, to do and so I just think we need to do a better job overall of being aware of what's going on. That's what's really shocked me about this. There seems to be a total lack of awareness from the school side that any of this would happen or would be a problem. Or that there's even anything wrong with it still to this point, other than the fact that it didn't happen during a regular school day. So accountability, we want these kids to be accountable, we want these kids to be resilient, we want these kids to have integrity. I mean, this is good, you guys are here, you're listening, that's a great thing. I can't believe it's a performance, so it's okay, there's logic. But that's it, that's all I got.
So
Good job.
I agree. The notion of the performance and how I see drag, I would not try to convince you. I would just say we have a different opinion there, and that's the way that is.
Strippers in the high school next year.
That
would be fun. The boys would love it.
You say that and it's fun. I have said I don't think that makes sense, and it's not a recognition of there's a difference of opinion. That's frustrating, but it's neither here nor there. The town, or I'm sorry, the administration has had several conversations, has tried to communicate. I understand it has not worked well. I understand there's ways we could do that better. I suspect with the communication and the emotions right now, no matter how well it was done, we'd sort of get to where I'm making a statement. You say, we just don't see eye to eye. You've got to be wrong, Paul. But I get it. Could we do that better? The administration also has had the Connections program in this ConCon for 5, 6 years.
Great idea.
But for many years, and has received positive feedback.
Even this year.
Has received positive feedback from the committee. So the committee has given them some direction on this. The drag performance, the drag show, the drag queen, whatever it is, surely went far enough to get people to say, well, that's the last straw. I don't think and I asked once, but I'll ask again, I don't think it's the drag piece that has set everybody to the point where they've said enough is enough, right? And that's where I was asking. If it didn't have drag and the con took place the same way it has for many, many years, would we be here still?
What else is
I
going
think
on?
it brought a lot of other things to light.
Tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. Fair, right? But that's the piece, because I don't think resolving it by saying, okay, no more drag, and then we'll be okay.
Do not.
You
See, but that's part of the problem, when everybody says those are the people on both sides. Both sides. Well, hold on. First, and then you can absolutely have the microphone.
Hi.
Hi.
I just want to acknowledge how hard it is to be a parent right now. It is hard. They are coming at our kids from every angle constantly. They're under emotional stress. They're being sold this identity and these feelings constantly. It's about their feelings and thoughts. But are you guys aware, like, schools are, like, starting to fail, and we're having people exodus from the school system to homeschool their kids, and these things just show that there is no transparency, there is no honesty. The only reason we know is because it went too far. You're absolutely right. People aren't paying attention until it's too late. And this is a big problem. And the other thing I wanted to ask you guys, there's a videographer. I mean, can't we just watch the video and make a judgment whether this was appropriate for school? Because it's funny how there was a video and nobody's seen it. If it was fine, wouldn't that be everywhere? You know, I'm wondering if you guys are aware of that. And then the part where you said the performance wasn't like part of the, how did you put it? It wasn't supposed to be a performance, it was supposed to be a workshop?
I think it was supposed to be a panel discussion.
So how could anybody say a parent didn't do their job if the information wasn't presented truthfully? That is not, you're not giving permission for that. Giving permission for what we all thought was the Connections Conference that's happened many times.
I don't know if there was a video. If there was a video,
There's a video.
we tried.
There's a videographer in the pictures.
You're on video 18 times right now.
I get it.
I
don't
just
know if there was
feel
video.
as though,
If there was
okay,
video,
and then
there
when you
was
get to that point with a school-related event, whether it's funded or not, or whether you approve it or not, when someone goes beyond what was on the plan, what was the plan, do you welcome that back again, or is there like some end where you say, you know, you overstepped your bounds and maybe you shouldn't have, I mean, it's pretty simple here. You know, I'm not welcome in the school without going to the office and checking in and going maybe through a metal detector. I'm not sure the different schools, but this person is just welcome to do, like, you know, you walked into a conference where you're supposed to be having a lecture.
Are you talking about a Corey check?
No, I'm just talking about in general, walking into school. Even parents have to check in. And, you know, you can't just walk in and be, you know, up on a table, for instance. Like, wasn't there any oversight at all?
Nobody should be on a table.
Yeah, the people who were attending, they knew who was attending, right? The people who signed up, so there was an attendance. It was, my understanding, to a large extent, teaching professionals and students from other schools who were coming to the program. So they had a feel for what was going on. My understanding, and I'm not aware of a video other than I've seen little snippets, but maybe there's a full video. My understanding, that workshop, which was don't be a drag, be a queen.
I think so.
It seems pretty, it seems pretty clear that you should expect some drag content in that. I'm told.
You should expect.
I'm told of the hour that it took place, that it was 3 to 5 minutes that was the drag performance. There was a lot of discussion before that, which may very well have been offensive. I'm not sure, right? But given the title.
How are you not sure yet? Right. Like, it's been 3 weeks of war online. How are you not sure?
Yeah, because one, I think the program is important. I started in that space. Two, we've talked about how much do we influence or approve the teaching.
Yeah, but I'm not asking if it's your fault or not. I know it's not your fault. You already said that. She said that. But you don't know if it was appropriate yet.
You
but they don't know how much it costs, they don't know, I mean, how did you hold this without knowing that information?
So I have a pretty good feel for how much it costs. I think if I talk about how much it costs, I'll miss a piece. Somebody will rightfully say, what about the stipend for the program? Or
You can't like generalize or?
generally speaking, the program costs the taxpayers little or no money, generally speaking. Now, they use the facility. So how do you recover all of that? It's difficult. There's the Connections program that's tied to
Oh,
the
no, I was
school.
asking about the performer specifically. I wasn't asking about like
The
Oh, that
performer
was
was
free.
no
That
cost.
wasn't paid.
They came in through an organization.
It was-
That was not paid.
Worcester Pride,
Yeah.
and they weren't paid for
Just
that.
does it seem a little off that a grown man would want to come to a school? Like to you, does it seem just a little off as like school committee? You know, I'm not talking about like, oh my God, big deal. I would go to a drag show. Just wait. Wouldn't you think it would be a little off for them to want to come to a school?
Not for the topic. And I would say, just out of curiosity, has anybody seen any of the news? Has anybody seen any of the news that talks about the dressed in drag and reading in libraries? It's in quite a
Yeah,
bit.
also inappropriate.
So-
Go read to elderly. Go, why don't they read to anyone else? Go read at the jail. Go read to the elderly. Why is it children?
I wasn't going to bring it up because I got one issue right now. I don't need to
Well,
make
you
it a
did.
national issue, but I brought it up because I do think it's important to know that it isn't necessarily
But
only a
shouldn't
Southern
business
issue.
leaders or like someone that had a hard life and rose above it, you know, shouldn't that be what represents LGBTQ kids? Shouldn't that be the goal
I
to
think
inspire
that would
these
also-
children?
Yes, yes. I
But
think that
also
would
a
be right.
man dancing on the table in underwear.
Me personally, I don't understand drag. I won't say I don't understand it. It's not something I've experienced.
Well, I understand it as an adult, but children might not understand that.
I understand
They don't get the
very well.
nuance that this is it's a play on womanhood and sexuality. It's just not really
The Mean
appropriate
Girls
for
was-
kids. I mean, you might think it's appropriate. Bring your kids to drag. Please do. Great. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know whether it feels painful anywhere. I will say, to get back to what does drag mean? Is it sexual? Is it not? Clearly, there's some pretty big differences of opinion, and how you communicate that, how much of that needs to be addressed
Why
or
just not
discussed.
avoid the whole thing? And, you know, why not just never bring it in, let someone else deal with that, and we sit back and go, thank God. we're not dealing with
Sort of the half snarky answer is because I don't avoid the things that are hard or that might impact somebody else.
but that's what I'm saying, this isn't Rosa Parks, this is drag. So, come on, what does that have to do with, explain how drag connects, and the drag scene in Worcester connects to the Connection Conference, you know, theme. Please.
I'll try once more. I'm pretty sure I've tried, and you're not going to agree. And it's sort of the back and forth. I will tell you, I take from this, we need to communicate that better. We need to make sure that's communicated. But if I keep saying what I'm saying and it's back, I get that we disagree.
No, I guess I'm sorry. I guess I missed the part where you explained why a young LGBTQ child benefits from drag.
So my understanding on drag is that it is an outlet for some folks.
Some children.
And for some adolescents who are not sure, that we provide a safe environment for them to see what that is and understand it better. And I believe that means promoting it.
How many kids do you think we have that need drag to feel good?
I have absolutely no idea.
But enough that it should.
I tell you what, if it was one of my children and this was what I was watching and I wasn't seeing any of the other parts of it and it wasn't being communicated, I would be really nervous. I would be really nervous about the community I was in.
You would be really nervous about the community you were in.
Yeah, I wouldn't come out. If I had a child who wasn't sure what was going on and
And how
instead
does
of providing a
drag
safe
promote
environment for
coming
them to get 3 minutes, 5 minutes, what I got was the video I watched of don't do it here. For me, I struggled it with, okay, so that was a bridge too far, but if you agree with it, or if you think it's providing any element of good, how do I find the middle? I don't know yet.
So just a scintilla of good, potentially, is all we need to get it in. And that's not promoting it in any way.
You understand, you're saying it's this essential of good, or whatever that small measure is. I don't have a good feel for what that is. I don't know that we've communicated, and I don't know that if we did communicate and talked about how much it was, it would still bring it across, right? I have no idea.
Yes, I just wanted to speak for a moment. As a parent, there's a lot of parents here, and I think they're trying very hard to keep sexuality out of their children's lives. There's so much that there are predators. When kids go on the internet, they're trying to put safeguards so they're not bombarded with pornography. That's a big part of parents' jobs, and it's always sneaking around the corner, okay? Now for me, and clearly a lot of people here, drag shows represent alternative, sexualized entertainment. It's something that I would never choose to partake in. Fine if you want to. I wouldn't want myself or my children, people I care about, to be doing this. And the fact that it was brought into a school, into an educational environment in front of young children as an option gives it a stamp of approval. And that's what people are so offended about. It's alternative entertainment that we're trying to keep out of our lives, and it was brought into the school. And clearly people are upset about it. That's the line that was crossed.
I think that's great feedback. I really do, right? Because your interpretation of it is right or wrong, but it's well articulated, and that was the line. I don't want it in the school. I get it was optional. I think that I lend some credibility to, it was at Sutton schools, right? Some folks, I don't know how many are in the room, some folks looked at that as a very big positive, that we were promoting Sutton schools and look at the great things we do. But where again is that right balance? So I appreciate the feedback. I don't know that we'll ever get to the same spot on some of the thoughts, but
that's why people are charged. You know,
sure.
That's why it feels like it's like a moral line was crossed. And what we're trying to cut out, the school or whoever, Connections gave it a stamp of approval, and it feels offensive.
I just don't think anybody came in this room without the kids and the town, their best interest in heart. I really don't. I mean, whether I agree with you or not, I think the people who came are concerned, literally concerned about not just their children, but all of the children and the school system. And finding a balance may be tough, but I don't think anybody's doing it for another reason. Unless you are.
Hey guys, you're missing the big picture. Like, they had a drag show. It happened. It's over. If this is all you're concerned about is the drag show, we're in big trouble. Because I can guarantee you that next year, they're not going to have a drag show. You say, oh, it's all good. We didn't have a drag show, right? But you're missing the big picture, that the educators in this school system are brainwashing the kids and only presenting one side of the issue. Don't let them off that easy, right? Say, okay, we won't have a drag show, and it's done, right? The Connections Club is good. Like, no one's saying that the kids shouldn't be able to express themselves. But you know what? Like, these kids these days, and again, I don't have kids in there anymore, but going back to when my kids were in there, they're accepting. But they're accepting of other people, you know, much more so than when I was a kid. And that's great. But that's not because of people brainwashing them in school. It's because of the job that the parents do. And that's the parents' job. Like, keep the teachers in their lane, but don't lose sight of the big picture, that it's the lack of fairness, the lack of an opposing point of view. It's stifling the thought of anybody that wants to have a differing opinion. And like I said, the whole drag show, all right, I don't like it. I don't think it was a great idea. I think they crossed the line. but it's in the past, right? I'd be more concerned about them pushing all the DEI initiatives and everything else that goes on there without a second look at their own child.
So I want to know how many people in this room know what DESE is? So for anybody who doesn't know, it's the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, which is essentially the Department of Education for the whole state of Massachusetts. It's located in Everett. It used to be located in Malden. They just moved at the beginning of the year. Most parents have not been there because they have monthly meetings, but they're not exactly welcoming of parents. I myself was arrested trying to ask questions to the Massachusetts Board of Education last year, and now I am completely barred from the building just for trying to ask questions. So a couple speakers ago, the woman said, it is your responsibility to know what your children are doing. And I completely agree. It is your responsibility. Now, I'm completely on the side of no drag queens in schools, and we shouldn't even be talking about sexuality in schools at all. That's for the parents to decide when their own children are ready to talk about it. But at the same time, we need to recognize that we have been programmed to become lazy and careless. We treat schools as daycare centers. I personally pulled my kids out of public school. I homeschool them. And I urge everybody to homeschool your kids because schools are indoctrination centers. Schools are teaching kids how to think, what to think, and how to act and how to be. And we as a society, as parents, have been programmed and brainwashed over decades and decades to leave it up to the schools and to not, like, you know, most of us didn't even know who our school committee members were. Maybe some of us still don't know who our school committee members were. Or when the elections are, or how long a term is for a school committee member. And the thing is, we put so much like pressure on the presidential elections and the national elections. What matters is what's going on locally. And we have zero control over what the schools are doing. DESE is who controls things. So if you don't know what DESE is, you need to get to know. And last year, they just updated the Massachusetts curriculum framework, and sex ed is included. There's very tricky language in there that makes it all sound great, but I promise you they will be teaching gender ideology to 3-year-olds in pre-K. They will be teaching masturbation to 8-year-olds. That's the plan. The curriculum is partly written and sponsored by Planned Parenthood, because this is a business for them to over-sexualize your children and turn them into pregnant teenagers or science experiments, cutting off body parts. There's also legislation in the state of Massachusetts right now to remove the mandate for parental consent in schools, meaning that if your 12-year-old child who's going through your 12-year-old daughter who's going through a tomboy phase is being indoctrinated by her teachers and guidance counselors to think that she would be better off as a boy, if this legislation passes and they don't need your consent, they can give your 12-year-old daughter puberty blockers. This is life-changing, and this is really happening. These things that you see on the internet that are happening all over the country, and you think that it's not happening to your small town of Sutton, it's happening, it's coming. The curriculum framework is already there. It passed last year. We need to educate ourselves. We need to do better as parents. Like, our children are our divine responsibility given to us by God. You know? We have to look at ourselves. You know, we can't look at elected officials to come in and save us. We have to do it ourselves. Trump is, you know, a lot of people think that if Trump gets reelected, he'll come and he'll save us. No, that's not going to happen. Your children are being molded into little social justice warriors and people who don't recognize men and women for men and women. This is happening, and it's real, and it's happening in Sutton, and it's happening everywhere. So we need to do better on ourselves. We need to put the blame on ourselves.
There's a couple of pieces. There's a format here that's allowing folks to speak far more because of the way we set that up, and I think that's important. There are several phones and cameras, and I think it's a great conversation. I, again, would implore you, as you go to think about where do I post and what do I post, the town of Sutton and what we're dealing with isn't going to be defined in a quick snippet, but it will, if it's not treated responsibly, cause tomorrow and the next day to be very difficult for people that we all want to protect. I hear you and we disagree. I'm just saying that we're all part of being responsible for trying to make it a safe environment for the building, for the people who are in the building, for the kids who are in the building. I think it's great that we're able to hear. We don't have to agree. I think it's great that we provide for that environment.
Hi, so I'm a parent of kids in Sutton, and I'm also a foster parent, and you know you were saying that a lot of, you know, you worry about indoctrination of children with different gender ideologies and things, and as someone who is trans and who has also fostered GLBT teens, I can assure you that is not happening, period, especially in the school systems. But it's...
excuse me, please let the person speak.
But yeah, I mean, I think that the value of... No, I'm not talking about like super sexual... I didn't watch the whole thing. I saw pictures and I saw some video that's pretty much all that was online of this particular performance. But I've seen multiple drag queen story hours, which are completely tame. Nobody's dancing on tables in drag queen story hours. I've taken kids, you know, my teens, to different events. And, you know, for LGBT teens, it is a lifeline to have that community and to know that your school is supportive. Like, okay, I'm not going to be bullied for being queer. Okay, my teachers are not going to make this an issue. It's not going to be, I mean, because when I was a kid, that was not the case. When I went to Catholic school, it was not accepted. Somehow didn't turn me straight or cis, but, you know, it did make my childhood a lot more difficult. I mean, I think, you know, kids are going to grow up to who they're going to grow up to be regardless. I mean, you hope that you can instill them with some good morals and good choices. And, you know, it sounds like in the actual school day of Sutton, I have not seen a problem. There are different programs outside of school. Like, you might not agree with all of them. I don't agree with every single outside of school program that exists. I don't send my kids to every single outside of school program that exists, but I think it's nice that they're there, even the ones I don't agree with, which is like a lot of people in this room. I'm still glad that you're here, and I'm still glad that we're all a member of, you know, the Sutton community, but I think that there does need to be a space for kids like my kids, you know? And I think it's important that it's not just, okay, well, not in my backyard. Well, at what point are you now giving the message to these kids that they're not welcome in Sutton? Because, you know, some of the kids, it sounds like from the folks I know who are also parents whose kids went to the conference, they weren't getting like creepy weirdness out of it. They were getting, okay, we're all accepted. We can connect with other people. We can, you know, form communities. Like, we're valuable members of society, and like, so are all these other people who are different from us. And I feel like that is a message we want. Now, do we need to maybe change how things were done? I don't know. Looking forward, that's kind of the job of, you know, the school committee and the folks who are organizing the conference. But it doesn't seem like the kids who went there and the parents who sent their kids there, for the most part, are getting what a lot of the folks in this room seem to be getting out of this experience. So, that's all.
I appreciate having the meeting and allowing us to speak. I don't appreciate you guys not having the facts about a lot of things. I wish you had more information about what was funding, what was approved, what wasn't. And I understand that you're just a school committee and you don't really even know. But if you don't have everything to begin with, I don't really see the whole point in this to begin with. I don't appreciate your acting so naive about drag queens. When I was a kid, drag queens were elegant. They wore gowns and they weren't going to schools, and it's always been 18 plus to go see a drag queen. And I mean, you've seen the news. You just admitted on the drag queen story. You know what's happening. happening in the schools, you know what's happening in the towns, you know what's happening. So the drag queens of when I was a kid are not the drag queens that are out now. That's just a fact. This is an over-sexualization version. These are predators preying on our children. You know, like, you need to be mindful of those kind of things, and parents can't consent to what they don't know. And I think that's the biggest thing you should take away from here, is that now everybody's going to be looking at everything from before now. They're going to be questioning everything that their children went through. I also homeschool my children for reasons just like this. Sex ed is in the curriculum. It is. I live in Millbrae. That's where they're teaching it. In kindergarten, gender pronouns, how to masturbate. That mother was up here asking, are you going to teach? Yeah, they are. They're going to teach that to your children. They're doing it in the next town over. Educate yourselves. Pay attention. Ask to see your sex ed curriculum. Find out what they're teaching your kids, because your kids are here for a long time. And they're teaching your kids exactly what she said, what Desi wants your children to learn. And it's not benefiting them. They're just creating little soldiers for them in the future. So parents need to open their eyes, and hopefully this was a wake-up call for everybody, because it was for me during COVID.
I want to try to correct, because I think I spoke poorly. The cost to the town to put on the program was covered through grants. It's not in the budget. It's not covered in that space. And I think that doesn't sit well with some folks, and I think that there's going to be more question. And that's why I said I don't know exactly, and surely there are pieces that are covered. The folks who spoke came either through grant money or came at no charge. The utilities, I think we would have covered, and that's how you'll get into it, right? But the cost to the town to put on the program isn't in the budget. This isn't like something that you could say whoa, there's a half a teacher or something. That just isn't where it's at. So I'm sorry that the way I articulated that didn't come across as I know. As I know and understand, this did not cost the town. Now, I think that's not going to be acceptable, and we're going to have to get further analysis of it, because I think there are going to be people who poke at that. That's why I described it the way I did.
Paul, were the grants written specifically for the Connections Conference, or were they written by the school for something broader and they chose to use it for that? I think that's
It was a larger grant, and a portion of the grant was written such to pay for a speaker for an event like that. So the grant covers a lot of other things, and under the grant is available online. So you can see that. That was in the last school committee packet. You can read that. People will interpret it different ways. The school did go to DESE to reconfirm the way that it was used was okay. And you can have your thoughts on DESE too, exactly. But it was confirmed that it was used in a manner that they agreed with. Parts of the grant were used for cell phone things and other stuff, teaching about cyberbullying, things like that. So yes, it's called the cell phone grant, but it encompasses a lot of aspects.
So as a school committee, do you have any sway over how the school uses the grants? Because it doesn't come from taxpayer money, hypothetically?
We approve grants, and I mean, it comes from tax money and the fact that it goes up to the state and we get it back, if we're lucky, you know. Do we have sway over how it's used? We approve grants for certain funding, but not always like specific to the detail.
If you look at the way the budget's built up, it's $20 million of that. $2 million of it is through grants and accounts. The $18 million is through tax from the town and the state. So when we develop the entire budget, we're looking at $20 million. But some of it is in grants or is earmarked for specific things. So again, I'm sorry we can't give definitive answers on all these, but it gets cloudy, right? If I can use a grant to cover this, then I can use other money to cover in a different space, and that action takes place.
I mean, you still count as part of your overall budget. So if I have 20, and you have $20 million to spend, $2 million of it comes from grants. You know, how many teachers is that? How many things that
Yeah.
benefit the whole school?
So that's where you start to let all the layers of the onion, right? How much of that grant can I use for staff? How much of that grant is meant to be used for recurring expenses or non-recurring? And every grant's written a little differently around what the expectations are from it.
So if it was a grant for Sutton, and you had 600 kids here from other schools, arguably, our Sutton grant benefited all the way up to 55 other schools over there.
I
No
get
way
the
around
argument. I get the argument, yeah. If you have an athletic event that takes place, the team comes from another town, and they reap the benefits of the assets or that particular sport.
That's the MIA, they charge a cover, and the
Yeah,
school gets it,
right.
except they're in playoffs, and the
Which,
MIA takes it all.
which is why I say it's not that it's so simple an answer. You look at those things.
It's just smoke and mirrors.
Dan?
You just hit on some of what I was going to say, because nobody brought up the cell phone grant, and I'm going to tie a couple other things together before you guys start yelling at me. The cell phone grant specifically says that it was going to be used for giving teens knowledge of how not to use their cell phones. How does not using your cell phone as the opening for the grant lead to a drag queen dancing on my table? It is the same grant. That's what was used. It was said so at the school committee meeting.
Dan, go ahead.
It was said so at the school committee meeting. It was verified, and it was one of 45 events. Did you go to the school committee meeting? You didn't. I can answer that because I go to them.
I attended as well.
And it was.
I think she interrupted.
Okay,
Yeah.
Dan, go ahead.
Secondly, somebody brought up the left and right in this school. Hypothetically, if I have an 11-year-old and she can tell me and has been able to tell me for 3 or 4 years which way her teachers lean, you have a problem. And it can get worse. If my 11-year-old can answer homework questions for a teacher based on what their leanings are, you have a big problem. And somebody made a comment about where the line is. In that line, there has to be an age as well.
Sorry.
If there has to be an age. If I can serve at 21, that's an age. If I can drink at 18, that's an age. What is an age for a guy to be dancing on the table with his rear end 2 feet away from a 8-year-old, 10-year-old? What's the age? Now, when we apply for these grants, it's worded as a grant, but we, as the taxpayers, are paying our administration, which just got more top-heavy because we added to it. We're paying those people to apply for these grants. That's taxpayer money. Secondly, everything is taxpayer money. You can't say that, well, we just pay for the facility or we just pay for the venue and the grounds. As taxpayers, we're paying for everything, especially those of us that are gainfully employed and learn basic math in public schools. The infrastructure in this country is all paid for by those of us that are actually contributing to the system. It's not free. Nothing is free. Basic physics that we forget to teach in this country. One of the first rules is no such thing as a free lunch, and that goes for taxes, it goes for everything else. And last school committee meeting, Bruce made the comment that was washed over, why isn't anyone pushing back against DESE? That should have been a bigger question. It should have been answered more thoroughly, and it ought to be explored more. I'll leave it there.
One thing on the grant, just to be clear, right, the cell phone grant was used to pay for the closing speaker, didn't pay for any of the workshops or any of the speakers at workshops. Just so we're all sort of clear.
That's the way it was worded at the last school committee meeting. And then secondly, this week, if I can have somebody come home from school and the nurse cannot afford a Band-Aid, how are we paying $2,000 to somebody? I mean, you can say it's not us, it's the money goes here, the money goes there. If this school system has a budget problem, coincidentally that was elevated at the same time this drag show was taking place, why can't we buy a Band-Aid or restock our Band-Aids for this school when we're spending all kinds of money on conferences and bringing people in from the outside to do it? And lastly, I've been in this school talking to kids about what I do, what I've done, and then I'll step back from that. When I donated to this school to get kids back in school and give them outside space to play in, I got quarter checked voluntarily. I got a background check because it was important enough for me to donate those things so that education could keep going. And we let people come in from the outside that close to kids. If I drop my pants right now and he was this far away from her, she'd probably have a rightful problem with that.
That's not right.
I'm just saying. I'm Cory checked, I'm background checked, and I've donated my time and resources to this facility. Why isn't somebody else, and why are they being paid for to come in and do that when my kid can't get a Band-Aid? That is the school committee's purview because that is the budget. And I understand grants, I understand where the money comes from, probably better than you do based on the big questions that have been walked around. But the money's the money, and if you're going to apply for things, apply for appropriate things for this district where I pay taxes.
More questions? I mean, I feel bad for all the folks that were coming tonight looking to be fully answered on all the questions. Our goal tonight, again, part of these, we do need help to answer the questions. You know, I wasn't at the conference, and we hire folks to handle a lot of this. You know, there's a reason why we hire educators. That's their field. So we do rely on them quite a bit to handle a lot of these things and the information. We also have a business manager for that reason, to understand the flow and all that. But our goal tonight was to get input from everybody. And again, I feel bad if you didn't get all the answers. That we're hoping to provide what we had, but we knew we didn't have everything. We want to hear things so that we can take that in. Thank you.
When is the next?
May 6th.
So I think May 6th is the next meeting, and I just hope that that energy here translates to that meeting, which is a public meeting and is a record.
Yeah, but it's not open.
I just want to say something about that. I don't have kids in the Sutton school system anymore. I did, and when my kids were in the school system, as you remember, I used to be at the school committee meetings, and I watch them from home now, but I encourage everyone to go to the school committee meetings, really. However, I have a big problem with the school committee meeting because for some reason you only talk about what's on the agenda. If somebody brings a topic to you, it's not for discussion. I think that's a dumb policy. I mean, why can't we talk? So I can go to the school committee and bring something up, but then I have to go home and I have to wait till you think it deserves to be on the agenda. I don't think that's right.
It's a difficult format. To keep the meeting running the way the meetings run, and it's not necessarily a Sutton format. I think if you watch any school committee, if you watch the select board, the way the structure works, it keeps the meeting moving for public notice. You speak about items that were posted on an agenda. So if you all of a sudden had a meeting and said, yeah, I know it's not on the agenda, but we decided to talk about this, then you get into a lack of transparency issue. So there are very specific reasons why the meeting format and structure is the way it is, and it can be terribly frustrating sometimes, and it also, I would argue, works fairly well. It doesn't mean it doesn't cause issues. It's part of why we kept saying this is not a meeting, right? This is not a school committee meeting. We're not deliberating, but it did afford the opportunity to have a lot more give and take, and to have people speak their minds a little more than than is generally possible in a school committee meeting or any local politics or large structure.
You can have a public hearing. You can have a public hearing.
You can have a public hearing.
Yes, I've been
Yes.
to them. I've
Yeah.
been to,
The meeting on the 6th has, I assume, several other items on the agenda, and how that would be structured, I don't know yet, but we'll see.
I think the school committee should really think about doing something where they have a meeting where the parents can actually say something, and instead of just saying, okay, thank you, we'll take that into consideration, we actually get an answer.
Right.
That's just what, I know, for future reference.
I hear it, and believe it or not, what comes out of this is 2 members of the board who are able to speak on those topics, who don't have to be when it's an open session, can try to represent or at least take into consideration thoughts of the rest of the community. That really is sort of the goal here, because I don't think we're going to change the format of the school committee meeting or the select board meeting. I'm saying select board meeting because I see Jesse, but of almost any meeting that has that similar structure.
So when do the parents get to speak to the school committee? I've texted you, I've emailed you in the past, and sometimes you get back and sometimes you don't. I mean, when do we actually get to say, like, hey, like I watch them on TV all the time, and I see them, and I see certain members of the school committee don't agree with something, certain members do. When do the parents get to speak?
You need to have a public hearing.
When is that?
Well, I mean, again, I think for the most part, every one of our meetings has had that public forum at the beginning. I understand the frustration that you ask questions and you don't get answers. If it's an agenda item, we can try to answer that during the session. The other issue is having a full public forum. We couldn't do that every meeting. We'd have a never-ending meeting.
No, not every meeting.
But I don't disagree with you that I think every once in a while it's a great idea to have an open public forum when you get feedback. And we did it years ago in the auditorium, and it was good, and we needed that input.
And you might get more people at the meetings.
Any other questions?
I just want to know, the next meeting, is the location separate from where the town hall is? Is it in a larger area that can accommodate more people? Because I know that, I mean, if just fire codes, if it's only fits 20 or 30, then.
Yeah. So the question was about the next meeting. I don't know specifically where the next meeting is. I think right now on the books, it's typically in town hall. So usually what happens is the chair will work with the principal in the town to find, or the superintendent in the town to figure out, can we push this at another venue?
How many of you are figuring on going on this? Okay. I'm half kidding, right? But this is feedback, and if nothing else, it's feedback on what's the right venue for the next meeting.
Yes.
You just have to consider if it's somewhere else, it won't be live streamed and
Yep.
it won't be on Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's, all of these have trade-offs.
So just, right,
For sure.
right.
And we're not deliberating, we don't make that call. I'm just.
Yep, nope, I just want to share.
Appreciate it.
If they know that a large number of people are going to show up to disagree with them, they're likely to have it on Zoom so that they can mute you and kick you out and silence you.
So thank you. I did post and say it was really.
You should get each other's phone numbers and organize amongst yourselves, because they're not going to do anything for you.
It's nice to get resident feedback, and it's a hot topic everywhere. It's nice to get resident feedback.
Nate, would you repeat what Chris said?
Yeah, so what Chris said is if we do have it at another venue, it's very likely we don't have the Zoom component because we don't have the hookup to have that. The town hall's set up to have that Zoom component, and when we have it elsewhere to try to accommodate a larger crowd, you do have the challenge.
And it won't be live.
And it won't be live. It'll
Just
likely
be
be
recorded,
broadcast
just like
afterwards.
this.
Yep.
Isn't the auditorium at the high school have the capability to do that? I think we pay for internet. The town meeting is that, it's live streaming on YouTube?
No.
With the cell phone.
Nope.
The right people are going to have to talk about that. There's feedback that comes from, right? I figure there'll be lots of different discussions about what took place tonight and how many people were there. I can't answer how they were put on the 6th.
And, it seems like we're wrapping up. whether I agree with you or not, or whether I'm somewhere in between, I still appreciate you coming. This is a chance for us to hear. And I think a lot of you are looking and saying, oh, I know where he lands, and maybe, I'm not exactly sure where I land. I can adjust. If I get information and I'm not okay with that, I move a bit. And that's all right. And I hope we're all there. And I hope at the end of the day we can all talk and listen to each other and at least try to understand. You may disagree, but at least try to understand and not shut people out immediately. You know, and the irony is, I think what I'm hearing from a lot of people, there's a limit. You know, and that's okay. Sometimes you find that limit. Sometimes it's too late. Sometimes you have the premonition to find it earlier. But the irony to me is, this kind of shows connections is a good thing. Maybe it needs some adjustment. That's fine. But I think the good idea is we should all find ways to connect, to understand each other. To me, that's what it is. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming. I really appreciate your input. Dave, yeah.
First of all, thanks for coming out. Yes. It takes courage to stand there and get slings and arrows at you, and I appreciate that. But Paul, you mentioned earlier that you started the connections, or you were there at the beginning.
Yeah, I've been on the committee longer than Connections has been.
Okay, so not knowing completely what it is, could you tell me what the original charter of Connections, what was the intent originally, and how did it go from where it was at the beginning to what happened a few weeks ago?
So I'll try on the first piece. The second, I'm not sure I can get right. So Connections is started as a program to recognize differences amongst the students and find an environment where whoever you are, whatever you are, is accepted and part of the community. It's sort of broad strokes.
So, was it specific issues that people had? I mean, I hear a lot of the LGBTQ stuff. But what about other kids? You know, a woman mentioned about, you know, someone with a religious symbol.
Yeah. Yes.
Or someone who's maybe conservative.
Yes.
And they think, and when, you know, my kids are no longer in the school either, but my kids would come home. And yeah, we're a conservative household. We are. And my kids help responsible for what they do, what they say. And they're good kids. But they're conservative kids. And they don't feel as though they can speak up at school. And how is that fair? How is that right? And I think, you know, we talked about it being, you know, inclusive for people. Well, it should be all sides, all opinions. And I don't get that vibe from Connections. Never have, never will.
The fact that you don't get that vibe is antithetical to the notion of what is trying to happen. And
maybe it's not a successful program.
So exploring that makes sense. I don't disagree with you, because what the vibe you're describing is not the vibe that they're trying to put forward. It's not how I understand it. It's not how it's described. So there's a misfit somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, has there ever been someone who has a different opinion?
Sure. You know what? I did ask a question around hypotheticals. Why don't we have a Young Republicans Club, right? And I think the answer very much is because we haven't had students who've said they want to do that. I asked a question, and within the last 10 years is where it was. So maybe it was 9.999 years ago. There was a Bible study club that the school supported and endorsed, and had staff who would support it, and had children who went after school. I can't speak a lot more to it other than the example there was. So is it as much? I really don't know. I do believe there is very much an appetite for programs that the kids want that are helpful, healthy. A Young Republicans Club for sure would be. Heck, you could have a whole convention and set up mock elections or platforms.
Right.
Would be
maybe a debate.
Would be spectacular.
Let the kids speak and learn how to debate
Yeah.
and articulate their thoughts.
Got to have demand for it. And boy, make this mean a lot easier. Say, sure, we got this also. There's got to be the demand for it from the kids. But
come on, the kids are impressionable.
Right.
If the staff If the staff isn't gonna sit there and support it and encourage it, it's not gonna happen. Kids are young. We're putting these descriptions on these kids like they're 30-something-year-olds and have independent thoughts that are free from other people's impressions and manipulations. They're not. They're kids. Their brains aren't developed completely. So they're gonna follow them. Let's be real. Let's be adults here.
How are
Talk
we
about what
careful to
really is
make
going
sure
on.
that we aren't putting forward a message that children are interpreting as, if I don't speak to that message, I'll be put down?
You're doing that now. You're doing that now.
I gotta tell you, I'm in the minority is my sense right now. I don't feel like I'm
You
really
are, but
pushing
we're
the
having a
ideas on
conversation. It's just a conversation.
Yes.
Right, wrong, or indifferent. I could be wrong, you could be wrong. We're talking as adults. Kids don't get that. They don't understand it. And if you think they do, you're wrong. You don't know basic intellect. Because kids are impressionable.
Everyone has authority over them.
You know, and you have to help them, but you don't guide them and dictate to them what they do. You encourage them. Encourage them to be right. Encourage them to be wrong. Just encourage them to think and speak freely. And they don't get that here. I'm sorry, they don't. I've heard it from my kids when they were in the school. Other people have commented on it tonight. It's the truth. And if you don't think it's the truth, you're whistling past the graveyard.
Can the school committee mandate that the school presents both sides of a point? I mean, it's in the code of ethics, it's in your charter. Can you mandate to Ted Friend and the superintendent that when they're gonna have these issues, that even if there isn't like a club that wants to come and champion it because the kids won't speak up against their teachers, but can you be the adults and say like, hey, it's great that you want to talk about this issue, but there's two sides to it, so who's coming in to do that?
We can ask for an explanation around how do you think we're doing that now? We can request
Can
to
you say
hear
like, hey,
that.
Ted, cut the crap and get it in there?
Well, I won't say that, but I for sure would explore, there is a real concern around this topic, or whether the kids truly feel free to voice either
But you
side,
have the power to mandate it.
and how would you present it? And I would hear out the answer. So I can
School
start
committee, you
there.
have the power to
I don't know
require.
that we have the power to mandate it. We set policy, we establish the budget, we
Would
hire
that
a
not be a
superintendent.
Be a pretty good one.
It'd be pretty hard to defend, I think. I'm not sure how I would make that work.
Just to say that
I can
both
help
sides
you.
have to be presented?
Who judges that, right? We don't all agree on it right now.
Okay, so you got somebody
Judges
coming
that.
in to teach a DEI workshop at Connections, right? Take it outside of Connections. Talk about when the teachers bring it up in school, right? If it's appropriate for them to be having that discussion in school as part of the curriculum, you know, and part of a policy that you guys could enforce on the school to say like, hey, if we're gonna talk about white privilege, we have to talk about the other side of it. If we're gonna talk about like, hey, we need to ban guns, we need to talk about the Second Amendment. That's not hard. That's
Certainly,
responsible.
gun control is easier than, I think, because there
Still
are
not
clearly defined sides. You could even have an argument around what the Second Amendment really speaks to, just in case everyone was really. But at least
Supreme
you
Court
have
already
that
decided that, but yeah.
Hi, my name's Eric. I just have a quick question. So the Connections Conference, in broad strokes, is to help people feel connected to the community and help them feel wanted and welcome, right? It doesn't matter what the specific topic or issue is. Is that something most people agree with? Yeah. What is the opposite? What's the other side that we're trying to foster here? Is it making people feel unwelcome? Is it making them feel, having a conservative group come and join the Connections Conference? Is it having a white supremacist group do that? Is it, we're speaking in far ends, left and right. So what is the other side? Is it having militia members come? And people who have been involved in school shootings come? Like, what are we trying to do? What is the opposite side? I just want to know, because I'm not clear on that.
It's a great question.
Yeah, I don't know. I think when I hear about...
It's an honest question. I'm not trying to stir the pot. I want to know what the other side to be represented.
I don't know what the other side of white privilege is, and I don't know if that's because I don't understand how it's being interpreted, or because I've missed something, and I think that's worthy of discussion. And I'm led to believe, and I accept and do believe, that is part of the discussion. That what does that mean? How do you act on that? It doesn't, and I don't think anybody is selling, so, give up all of your privileges or any of that. It's a great conversation.
Yeah, that's all.
Thank you.
So I think I have maybe part of an answer for his question. So in my mind, it's not a matter of opposing sides. It's a matter of inclusiveness, right? Inclusivity. So that every student who goes to Sutton finds a workshop they want to go to Connections and watch. Because the way that it's set up now, the only people who go feel the exact same way about every point of view. It's only one-sided. It's not opposites, but including everyone to find something they can connect with at Connections, because that's not what's being offered right now.
What would you offer?
Anything. It could be something on financial planning,
Financial
something
planning.
on careers, something on anything of interest that students want. But there's none of that. It's only about your agenda of your civics.
Yes, civics, have someone talk about what it's like to be in the military, someone who's a first responder. Bibles, have the Christian kids come and talk.
What a school committee is.
Yeah, public service, like all sides. Class on feminism, a class on being a mom, I don't know, something, all sides.
Community service.
Again, all 4 of my kids have participated in Connections. None of it has, I guess, all of it has opened their eyes to different things. It hasn't switched their viewpoints. We come home, we talk about it. I shouldn't even say that. It doesn't switch their viewpoints. No, we don't. That's the thing. I'm married to a Republican, okay? No, I'm just saying, like, he's a conservative Republican up there. And we talk this through with our kids. You're saying, like, it's our responsibility to raise our kids, but we have a very narrow scope of, like, exposure. Me and my husband, we've been living in Sutton for 20 years. And there's a lot out there in the world, and that's like a little bit of exposure, I guess, and I would love it if we had a debate club, and I would love it if we had people come up with different viewpoints, because I learn every time I talk to someone else with a different viewpoint, it causes growth, and so I think that's where you develop critical thinking with your kids, and it's not like sitting here bashing each other, or, I don't know,
This
it's
is a
just...
debate. This is a debate.
Yeah,
This is
it
good
is
for
really nice to
students.
have, it's nice, it's good energy if people can keep it respectful, right? And that's what I feel like with Connections a little bit for my kids, and I'm saying this is their experience, is learning about things that they don't have any exposure to here, okay? We're very generic people, we're very middle-class, generic people, and so this has given them exposure to whether environmentalism or what happened in the Puerto Rican hurricane and what was the support that was provided there, stuff that they...
Hurricane wasn't Puerto Rico.
Huh? Oh, I'm sorry if I misspoke, I apologize, it's way past my bedtime. Anyway, that's all, I'm just saying, I feel like, yes, it would be awesome if there was debate club. I feel it would be awesome if there was more sides represented. I completely agree. I can understand why people are frustrated and aggravated and whatever, but in the same breath, respectful discussion is good. And how do we you're saying, the only kids that show up at Connections are the kids that would agree with those. I would have to disagree with you with that, because I do have
Republicans too?
My kids aren't declared anything. My kids are figuring out life.
Exactly.
But this is part of their figuring out. They're figuring out, oh, so woke that it's, bad for the movement kind of stuff, or whatever it is. And it's interesting, honestly, when they come home, and then our debates at home, based on the information that they come home with. And again, I agree with there's a lot of what you guys are saying about school, and I would say one-sided opinions accepted on things, and that's what I completely agree with you. And I feel like you specifically is looking at me like I'm some crazy loony person or something like that. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying, it's I don't know, the connections is meant to form connections. It's meant about building bonds so we can find a way, like you and I might love the same books, and then we start connecting over reading the same books, and then you share your opinions with me, and you make me grow as a person, and that's all I want to say. I guess that's the gist of what I'm trying to say, is growth, and that's what I feel like connections is about.
I don't want to keep hogging the mic here, but this is a serious conversation. If you found out that a parent was teaching their child at home how to masturbate, would you not consider that child abuse? This isn't curriculums in school. We're talking about a drag queen doing a performance for children in school. If this was happening privately at home, you would be reporting that parent for abuse. This is child abuse. So yeah, people should be angry. People should be upset.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for coming. I hope you had a chance to express. I learned that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. You guys took all the bullets.
We're gonna do one more.
Well, I get the thing on inclusion. The problem is why are we including nightclub things at high school? Now, my daughter was an actual attendant of the middle school last year, and luckily my child was not there this year. My child, I showed her the board meeting about what happened at school, and she was so mortified that this person that came in was in attire that is not acceptable at school.
Right.
My own child, who would have gone to this school and would have attended this event, was horrified in her own mind about what happened. So the kids are horrified about this. This is not, it's inclusion when we're actually talking about including people and actually talking about actually including people in good conversation. Drag queens aren't part of that. They are a nightclub entity. They shouldn't be in the school. Not only that, he was unquery checked. I had to be query checked to come into the school to read a book to my own child. That is uncalled for. So even the kids, my daughter who is 13 years old and who would attended this school last year, was traumatized by what happened. And she didn't even go to it. So what about the kids who went to it and didn't get to speak their mind about how inappropriate they thought it was because other people around them liked it? And then they didn't feel like they had to go home and only tell their parents, like, what happened. Yes, these things shouldn't be happening at school. They are for nightclubs. They are not for children. So, I mean, I'm all about inclusion. I'm all about cultural diversity and true cultural diversity. I have traveled the world myself. I have been to Japan. I have been to Venezuela. I have been to Haiti. Not many people in this room can say they've been to Haiti to actually see what a country like that is and to actually live in it. Okay? So cultural diversity is important for these children. They need to learn cultural diversity, which does not in any way entail a drag queen. That is sexualizing our children and opening them up to pedophiles abusing them. That is not okay. When we get sent home with the sex ed plan for these kids, why is it not the same for this? Why was there not a memo sent home that this is what was going to be talked about at school? We get told what's taught for sex ed and we get an opt-out. We can take our children out of that and teach them at home instead. We can let the school teach it, but nobody was notified about what was going to be happening. And this person did not come in business suit, school appropriate attire. The attire that was worn with stuff that our children would get in trouble for wearing. They would get sent home for wearing it. They would get sent to the principal's office to wear these same clothing. They can't wear panties they can't wear that at school. They would be sent home. So how is it appropriate for a grown man to come in dressed in attire that the children would get in trouble for? And that is not inclusion. Inclusion is accepting people, but it's not bringing someone in who's not in the appropriate setting for the school. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Time.
Thank you for coming.